Hello, Josh. Welcome to the Short Round Podcast. I really appreciate you being on here, ladies and gentlemen. Stupid me, I forgot to hit record. We started this for about 5 minutes. I was like, did I hit record? So we're restarting it again. Hey, I'm putting my falls,
Throw it out
my
there. Be honest, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
putting
good.
my
We got a good
troubles out
chat.
there.
Yeah, we got warmed up. That's what you do before anything big, anyway. So yeah, we got our
Yeah,
practice in. It is still good to be here, my friend.
yeah.
Glad to have you, man. Glad to be on.
So I'll sit there and kind of count this as a two-parter. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
But everybody, this is Josh. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name because I stink at pronouncing people's last
that's
names.
okay. So Quayhagen, pretty phonetical, I believe is the word, but Quayhagen, long A's.
All right. So, Josh, everybody knows I start the same way. You get three questions. It's the same three questions, no matter who you are. How and why you got into karate. What's karate doing in your life right now? And the third question, what's your plans for the future? Um, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. How did you get into karate? And just give me like a little bit of background of, how you learned and, what really made you get into it.
Right on. So, man, I'm a third generation black belt. Both my grandparents and my dad all got their black belt right around the same time. All started about the same time. But then my dad was running a dojo pretty early on in life. So to be honest, I learned to walk in the dojo. I started training when I was 4. I remember being in there, maybe not too much remembering, but there's still pictures of me walking around the dojo even before that. So I think it was just kind of almost always how I was supposed to be. I've done it ever since. Some part of my life I competed and did different sports too. I played college football, but martial arts has just been part of life from as early as I can remember. So I'm in it. I'm a ninja for life.
So, explain a little bit like what styles
Yeah,
you
yeah,
learned and like what did your grandfather, and you said your grandmother also had a black belt?
yeah. Both my grandparents. So my
That is so
grandfather was in.
strange, though. That is so
Yeah,
strange because you sit there and think, and then I don't know how old your grandmother is because you're what, in your mid 30s?
yep. Some
All right, so
36.
let's just sit there and say she's over 60, right?
Yeah. Oh,
All
quite a
right.
bit. Yeah, yeah,
So for
yeah.
her to get a black belt, at a time when women really weren't doing martial
Yeah,
arts in the United States is pretty amazing.
man. I saw a post from one of the fighters, but it talked about women in martial arts, and I just honestly love it. My grandma, she's passed away now, but she was one of the biggest inspirations in my life. I got to spend a lot of time with her, and looking back now, of course, I know I'm a little smarter now. I understand what that was for her to show up and for her to commit to 5-6 years of doing martial arts and obviously a different time world. I'm just more inspired by her. She now knowing what she did, it really is cool, and I think it was always kind of bred. My parents were separated, so a lot of times I lived with dad a lot, and my grandma was pretty much mom a lot of the time, and then so she was always that ninja. She was always that kind of rock that started. So I'm glad you kind of you tore into that a little bit because I really think women in martial arts. I think it's awesome now, but man, it was crazy back then. And she got her black belt. I agree. It's pretty nuts.
No, yeah, 100%. You have to sit there and think about it, people. That was a totally different time for
Yeah,
women to
70.
ever be in some kind of martial arts or, any kind of contact sport thing
Mm-hmm.
like judo and things like that. So, I mean, hey, you have to give her the hand on that one.
Yeah, right on. And as grandmas are, sweetest woman you'd ever meet too. But you just don't cross her. You could always get a sense of that from an early age.
She walks around, gives you a little chop in the back of the
Yeah,
back
yeah.
of that neck.
The only person I ever know you could feel the love in the slaps. You know what I mean? She'll slap you upside your head. Like, oh, that's as kind as I've ever been slapped, but I won't do it again no more.
So, let's get into like what kind of styles. Now, was it one of those things where your grandfather and your grandmother learned a style and then your father came along with them, or was it the grandfather taught the
Flips,
dad?
actually. No, it says flips. So actually, my dad. So again, my grandfather was a Navy Navy officer. So my dad was a Navy brat. He had five. There were 6 of them. He had 3 brothers, 3 sisters. But actually, my dad got into it maybe with another one of his brothers. and the other brother left, got out, and my dad stayed in for I think a couple years before both maybe my grandma got in first, and then kind of I think maybe old Pawpaw was like, oh no, I'm gonna end up getting thrown over somebody's shoulder if I don't learn some stuff too. So actually, Dad, then later on, Grandma and grandfather showed up, and they ended up training, and so they spent kind of became a family thing early on. So that's how, that was the order. So Dad has always been the ranking guy. He's the one that ended up starting our style later on. When they moved away, he did some Shotokan. He ended up getting a brown belt in Shotokan. Spent a few years all around the country. And then when he got back to where we're from, Louisiana, he was doing some boxing and different things like that. So he kind of almost what I like to think got a chance to kind of get a little taste of MMA now. Now in my dojo, we have our Kyokai-Do style karate. We have Bang Muay Thai. We have MMA. We have grappling. We have man. It's just I love it. And I get to even be a student. I get to go over here and do this class here as I get to teach. So man, I love what martial arts is now. I love MMA in terms of the martial arts. The sport, of course, is great, but even for everybody, not cage fighting, just mixed martial arts, learning from all these different avenues and ways, man, I love it. So it's
Now
kind of
you
helped me
also
out.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there. That it helped you up.
Say I'm not sure. Oh, I'm not even sure where I was going, but go ahead.
And I'm sorry for cutting you off. Like I
no
said,
problem.
like I said before, that's my problem. My ADD kicks in, and then I have a question, and I'm like, and I thought you was done. People,
That's good, man.
that's
Spit
yeah.
it out,
I'm,
bro. I'm here.
I like to have fun. I like to have fun, and this is what this podcast is about. I'm not going to be up here and be an ESPN analysis. Hey Josh, you wanna get back into your personal life. How did it affect? No, I'm not going to do that. But you also said before, stupid me forgot to hit record, that your grandfather and your father also got black belts in an Okinawa style. What was the style?
Yeah. Okinawa Nishinryu, so under a master church. So that was in Charleston, South Carolina, I believe we decided. So yeah, they all got their black belt there, and so that's where it all started. And to be honest, I think some things happened with Master Church, their instructor, and some political things, and so it all got kind of crazy political as it gets sometimes. So when my dad actually started teaching, he formulated his own style, and that's the type of martial arts that I do now. We call it Kyokai-Do, but so even in the bylaws, it's learned from the old, but but search for the new. We want to constantly be growing and learning, and really got a lot of ties and a lot of love for Bruce Lee, and just the idea of constantly growing, not necessarily getting caught in our way. And of course, traditional karate, I mean, it's about learning the tradition and learning the things. And these are absolutely great. I love this community, but also I think we should always keep our head forward and see what's new, what we can learn new, and always kind of be in this constant evolution of change. And so it's kind of written into our bylaws. So I love it. Even early on, that was kind of preached to me to keep learning. Hey, go learn over here. Go learn over here. When probably when I was early on, there's a time where, man, if you did karate, you didn't go to the boxing gym. You were a karate guy. You're versus the boxing guy. So that was kind of instilled right from the beginning and into my nature, into my martial arts pedigree. That hey, man, learn from everywhere. Do all things, and then bring it back to your martial arts, to your karate. So that was our way.
Yeah, and and I don't even want to really get into it, but I have talked to a different people, and it is really kind of sad how politics gets into martial arts. And we're not talking about like government politics. You're talking about, style politics, and, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't add this into it. Like Jeff Speakman, he gets a lot of flack from some of the Kempo community because he wanted to add on to Ed Parker's Kempo. He wanted to add in jiu-jitsu and things like that. And they're like, no, we need to keep it the way that it, originally was. And he even brought out that Ed Parker said, no, keep evolving, keep going. So it really stinks at politics. And I've even talked to some of the, dojos around here, and it happens. So that really kind of stinks, because it really holds people back, and it really holds the style back, I think.
I agree. And I get it too, rooted in tradition. I think tradition, you learn from these guys before, you want to keep teaching and there's just this hierarchy, this pride thing that I think that really ends up crippling the evolution of things and just trying to stay in that old way. Or I think really good martial artists, if you go back to it, your true masters, your ones that really were great instructors, were great martial artists. They all should have this philosophy of evolution. That they should know through the process of martial arts. If you spent, over any extended amount of time in martial arts, you should know that you better be changing, you better be
Yeah.
growing, you better be adapting, or you're going to be getting passed up. And so I think that that's rooted into a lot of styles, but a lot of times, just the pride and the black belt and the tradition kind of get kind of rooted in, and then all of a sudden later down the line, some new people say, nah, do it like this, do it my way, that's how I learned, that's the best way. And I think there always needs to be that dose of humility if you're trying to grow, if you want to grow, whether it's yourself or your martial art, your discipline, do the best you can.
Well, that's just like the saying, what's a tradition? Doing something that you don't really understand the reason why you're doing it. It's just been always done,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't a lot of people really have to sit there and think. All those old masters, that they're sitting there saying we need to keep it traditional. They learned from somebody that added something in from somewhere else, like like our original master of Shudokan. He kung fu, all kinds of different arts he put together when it wasn't even his style. Shudokan is actually means the hall of learning or something like that. And what was happening is it was in an Okinawan, and I think he moved over to Japan for a little while. But the army guys and the military guys were coming over there learning it, and when they came back to the States, just started calling it Shudokan. So like it wasn't even, but his philosophy was, this is a hall of learning martial arts. He put all kinds of different things in there. So it's just like a school, you're going to learn different things, right? So when your father started his own dojo, and you said he kind of went with his own kind of style kind of thing, and
Yeah,
did your grandparents also do that, or was that more of your father's thing?
so it's pretty much my dad and my grandparents both kind of partook. It was later on in life, I guess it was, so that my dad was a teenager when he got his black belt, like 16, 17. And then I don't believe he started actually teaching. I mean, like I said, they spent some more time. He got his brown belt in Shotokan. It wasn't until he was probably maybe 28, even maybe a little bit younger, 24, 25, where he started to kind of look and teach. And I think formulation of his style, our style, Kyokaido, was not rooted in until probably he was around 30. So
Okay.
he started kind of teaching one way, and then kind of felt like, then he teach a cross that he learned in boxing. Like, hey, well, this is how you're going to throw more power. And then after a while, really kind of the same thing when other black belts would come from a certain style and some things were being done, sometimes throwing punches with our hand up instead of from our belt. It just started becoming political. And as you understand, you are kind of breaking tradition, so you're going to ruffle some feathers. So later on, he basically just said, all right, I'm gonna start my own style, my own thing, and I'm glad he did. I think even competing in tournaments early on, like, it was a little bit, we were the black sheeps. You know what I mean? Sometimes we wore the black gi just to do it. Now I only wear a black gi, but we wanted to kind of be that we already were gonna get that kind of, hey, we're our own style, we're going forward, not traditional this, not traditional this. So right from the beginning, I felt like I think it helped me. We were when I go to tournaments, I was a lot of times looked at like, wouldn't get the luck into the draw. It'd be tougher right from the beginning. And to be honest, I remember as a kid thinking, man, Dad, let's just go back to the tradition. Like, we're not, like, this is tough. But I mean, he kind of pushed us through it. Like, nah, just go. A lot of times we'd maybe lose kata and fighting, we'd have a little better shot because it's tougher to kind of edge the pencil a little bit in fighting. But it's still gonna get some calls. But man, looking back, I freaking loved it once I realized it and started kind of thinking, living like everybody's against this. Hey, train harder. You're gonna have to be that much better than that person. That looking back, I remember the early on difference where almost showing up wanting to prove myself, and losing and getting maybe some calls not going my way and being frustrated. So coming back and being more intense in my training for like, man, I got to be that much better, that much better. I remember it affecting us negatively originally, but after a while, just as in martial arts, man, that adversity becomes what makes you. You know, the obstacle is not in the way; it is the way.
Yeah.
Who you're trying to become is on the other side of that. And looking back now, I can honestly say that, you know, I'm not a world champion now. If a lot of those things, those adversities don't happen early on, all because we were a little bit of the black sheep in this political style of karate. But and now I think a lot of walls have been broken down. I love MMA. I love the people that I grew up competing against and with. I'm still a lot in the sanctions. The USKA is one of the big ones I compete in. I love it. It's got my people in it, so I spend a lot of time there. It's just really cool how we've kind of evolved into it and through it, and really how it's affected other things in life, business life, you know, any kind of thing, any kind of adversity rises. It gets you more prepared. And man, that's what martial arts is. That's what it's for. That's what we want to do. Hey, things are tough. The world ain't easy, but you're stronger than you think. Let's go get it, you know? And so got a chance to learn that early on.
Yeah, it's funny how people have a certain outlook on martial arts. They just think it's learning violence, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. It's not learning violence. Uh, you know, it's learning self-control. It's learning, getting through difficult times. You know, getting through difficult things. You know, everybody sits there and watch somebody do a kata. You know, when you first learn that kata, yeah, you have to remember from your feet all the way up to your head has to be a certain way for you to do that kata correctly.
Yeah.
You know, your knees have to be bent a certain way. Some styles, your knees have to be like over the toes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the back leg needs to be straight, or some katas, you know, the back leg needs to be bent a little bit. It's, you know, so it's not just learning violence. And what people have to understand, see, because, you know, I talk to different fighters, karate combat, UFC, PFL, you know, all those different things. But I also like my biggest thing is the self-defense side of martial arts. And yes, to fight violence, guess what you need to know how to do? You
Exactly.
need to,
Yeah.
how to be violent too. But this is the thing. You need to know how to be violent, controlling. You have to know how to control that violence. You know, you don't have to be that guy out there, you know, somebody comes to attack you and, you know, you just go all Hulk mode on them. You know, how about you just do enough so you can walk home? You
Yeah,
know,
I'm with you. I think even kind of just to even level it up, you know. So one of the Gandhis, Mahatma, I can't remember, but he's got a quote I like. I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, but it says, you can't truly choose peace if you fear violence. If I'm not doing violence because I fear it, you can only truly choose peace if I'm not afraid of violence. So
yeah,
there's really only power in being peaceful, you know, when you're not afraid, and that's that idea, you know. As a black belt, as a master, we want to try to avoid as best we can. Use our, you know, words if we can and understand. But you don't get that. You don't have that humility unless you trained, unless you understand that. Hey, if it does get physical, you know, I'm not afraid of it, or I'm willing to step into it. And so that sounds different when you're peaceful in that way.
yeah.
And I think that's truly what we're kind of looking to do. One of my favorite quotes. One of my favorite quotes is sorry. Dog just ran and jumped on the bed. But one of my favorite quotes, I don't even know where it's from, but it says, the student says to his master, Master, you teach me all this violence, so to speak, just to kind of paraphrase, but you always talk about peace. How do you reconcile the two? And the master says to a student, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's just one of my
Yep.
favorite, you know, that's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be a warrior in a garden. If it needs to, if somebody needs to step up, a martial artist, I believe, you know, as we grow, that's who steps up. That's who we need to. And the world needs more martial arts. It needs more
Yeah.
warriors to be able to step up. But it needs us to live in our garden also. And I think that's where we truly excel.
Well, it's like this, you know, the style that I take, it's funny that when I got into martial art, I've been around martial arts for 20 something years. All right. But I actually didn't fully go into a dojo and go on the path, of learning, martial arts
Yeah.
until like 5 years ago. And I went in for health reasons. I mean, I was pretty much really going to die. I broke my neck probably
Wow.
about in 2006. I didn't know about it. 2012, I went paralyzed. And up until a few years ago, until I started karate, I could barely move,
Wow.
and I blew up to almost 700 pounds.
Man.
Yeah. And
Wow.
then, yeah, me and my wife had a daughter. And when she was like 4 months old, and she's 5 now, matter of fact, she's in kindergarten right now. Uh, she was like 4 or 5 months old. I had a doctor's appointment. My wife went with me. She was holding her daughter over in the corner, and the doctor didn't even look at me. She looked right over at them. She goes, if he doesn't change something, he's going to be dead in 6 months.
Wow.
So what did I do? My spinal cord and my nervous system was being crushed by the 4 vertebrae in my neck. I had to get 4 of those replaced, and that's what made me go paralyzed. But the 7 years up until then was just doing so much damage.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand when you do nerve damage and spinal cord damage, like this much right here, just that little bit of damage will take almost a year just to fix that. I probably had about this much,
Wow.
So, I wasn't doing anything and I was getting overweight. And when she told me that, I said, you know what? I'm going to go do karate. And when I went over there, uh, there was a little lady. She was the she was the sensei. She was the owner. She was like 5'1", 5'2", maybe 5'3". I don't know. I'm 6'5", so
Wow.
yeah, so I went in there and I told her, listen, I need help. I was so fat I couldn't get a gi. And then finally I found a place that in searching the internet, because I wanted to fit in with everybody else. I was doing sweatpants and shirts until I found a gi. And that right there, doing the katas, being in that form, back straight, arms the way they need to be, legs,
Yeah.
that all helped me, be able to, start moving. And that really helped me a lot. And so that's really when I got into martial arts. But like, excuse me, like I was saying, to start where I started the story is I'm doing the same style, but I was doing it from her when I started. Now I'm doing it from her ex-husband.
Yeah. It's funny how I know a couple of different stories like that. It's crazy how you kind of, and that's kind of what I mean about martial arts too. I love your story, by the way, man. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, man. I know people's probably going to be tired of listening to it because I say it almost on every podcast, but this is the reason why I do. My questions are always the same 3 questions. You're always going to get a different answer. All right. And when I'm talking to you guys, I don't know if people are going to go listen to the other podcast. And I'm talking to you, me and you're learning our story.
Yeah, right on.
Even though everybody's going to hear my story over and over again, but
yeah, that's all right. I was glad to hear that. It's inspiring. So again, I just love martial art. Because it is it's that growth. For you, it looked serious. It was life or death. That path and that adversary, that obstacle we were talking about, looked a lot different than it has for me at a lot of times. But it's the same journey. It's what we needed. And man, I love that. That's what martial arts should do for everybody.
Oh, 100%. And pretty much, I was sitting there, went off on the tangent of talking about that story. But really what I was going to say was it's funny how different dojos and even the same style, like she sat there and said, when you learn to be able to do violence, right? Let's just sit there and say, you're able to do violence. There's different kind of people that know how to do violence. There's people that go to karate to learn to be violent, and they're not the nice guy. They learn to do violence because they want to do more harm to somebody else, correct?
Yeah.
You have those people. And then you have the people out there that don't know any kind of martial arts, but they're violent people.
Yeah.
And then you have your people out there, and this is what she said. She goes, if you're somewhere and there's a drunk, and he gives you a hard time, you don't have to go full force on him. You don't have to, because you don't have to break his arm and then throw him down on the ground, and, some of the bukais or whatever you take from, karate and stuff. Me personally, I like to look at katas, where I can take pieces of this and pieces of that and make combinations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Just like anything else, grab that arm, pull him in, give him that elbow, maybe then throw him back, give him a front kick, like you would learn from Muay Thai, right? So, but the new sensei that I'm doing now, his style is, the same style, teaching totally different.
Yeah.
She was more about doing the katas and sport karate, where we don't really do sport karate. I'm here to teach you self-defense.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I think it all needs to be based in self-defense. I think sometimes, and it's tough, sometimes you build a dojo, you get a competition team, or you get some people coming in because they want to go be on your competition team. You almost start teaching through how they're competing. And it's important to make sure that we keep that level of self-defense underneath it too. And especially for kids, but everybody, to understand the difference of when, like you said, when how to control yourself. And that's why, to be honest, I love karate, because even the sport of it, it's about karate and control. Karate combat, we go a little harder than normal. But I do love the aspect of being able to apply it correctly and understand the situation. So, hey, look, if we're in a competition, it's one thing, and if we're not, it's different. It should look different. It should feel different. Almost, targets become different. The way our attack points become different, and so I think that hopefully at least there's some root in that self-defense in all of it. But a lot of times, we get, just like all teachers. That's why it's good to have. That's why I love martial art or MMA. But also I have 3 different black belts from 3 different styles teaching my karate. We split up in groups. They go around to different ones, but they're going to teach how they know to teach, and they're going to express information how they know. And from different scenarios, we do try to apply self-defense sometimes, and obviously competition style different times. But it really is different, and people always apply it different. And that's what I think everybody, that if you want to do it, you want to master something, you have to also learn how to teach it. There's a different psychology that you understand when you're trying to take information and give it to somebody else. So I think teaching is always something that we should practice doing, even if it's just helping somebody a little lower than you in class rather than your own dojo.